broadcast, actually.
Yes.
It's now
You ready?
broadcasting, so we can let the attendees in. The attendees are coming in now.
Okay.
Okay.
This regular board meeting will be
There he is.
conducted pursuant to the provisions of the governor's executive order N2520, which suspends certain requirements of the Ralph M. Brown Act. The Board of Education will conduct this meeting as a teleconference. Remote access to the Board of Education regular board meeting. In compliance with Governor Newsom's executive order N2520, in response to the ongoing COVID-19 outbreak, the district will conduct this board meeting, this regular meeting, as teleconference. Please use the following toll-free numbers and meeting ID to call into the meeting. Telephone number 1-669-900-9128. Meeting ID 121-679-029. On your computer, there was a link posted on the board agenda. The password is 629936. The board agenda is also available at www.TUSD.org. Written comments can be submitted to superintendent at superintendent.tusd.org. The submissions will be read aloud, which I will be doing today. The guidelines will follow board policy 2350. And with that, Mrs. Reagans, I'll turn it over to you.
All righty. So we are calling this meeting to order at 7:03, I guess. There is no closed session information, which reminds me, I forgot my things over there. But I do want to welcome any guests that are here with us. I don't see anybody on our screen, but there may be some listening or some out there, and you may be watching this at a later date. We appreciate you being here. We will forego the Pledge of Allegiance this evening because of the teleconferencing. I do need a motion and a second to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
all those in favor? Do we need to do a roll call, a vote, Shelley?
No.
No, you do not.
Okay. So all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. So our agenda has been approved. Staff presentation and information, there is none. Public hearings. That is what I forgot. Hang on. I'll be right back. Too many things in too many places. Okay, public hearing item number 9.1. And that is is this the right one? Yes, developer fees. Okay, just to make sure I had the right one. Public hearing on the Board of Education of Torrance Unified School District to increase statutory school fees imposed on new residential and commercial industrial development projects pursuant to Education Code Section 17620 for developer fees. This is a duly noticed public hearing. The Board of Education of Torrance Unified School District of the Board of Education of Torrance Unified School District to increase statutory school fees imposed on new residential and commercial / industrial development projects pursuant to Education Code Section 17620 developer fees. Have any written comments been received from any person as a reportable fees report on the reportable fees report since April 9th, 2020?
We have received no comments.
Okay. Is there anyone present here or in our audience who wishes to comment on the increase of statutory school fees or the increase of statutory school fees resolution presented for adoption in tonight's agenda? If so, please write in now according to the instructions that Dr. Mann just gave or those posted on the agenda. And be sure to state your name. We'll give a little bit of a pause here in case someone is writing a comment. I doubt that there will be, but maybe there will, you never know. Give them about 10 seconds. And I think that is up. Since there is no discussion, I will close the public hearing and announce that the board will be considering the resolution accepting this report in item DA-11.3. That's discussion action item 11.3. And now I have public hearing for item 9.2. The Torrance Unified School District, this is, by the way, the board's initial response on the Torrance Unified School District initial proposal, Torrance Teachers Association for 2019 to 2020. The Torrance Unified School District initial proposal to Torrance Teachers Association for 2019-2020 was submitted at the regular meeting of the Board of Education held on March 16, 2020. Copies of the proposal have been available in the city libraries and the Human Resources Department for review by the public. Public hearing will be held on the Torrance Unified School District initial proposal to Torrance Teachers Association for 2019-2020 at this time. Is there any public comment related to the Torrance Unified School District initial proposal to Torrance Teachers Association for 2020?
We have no comments, Mrs. Reagan.
Okay, once again, we'll give a little pause. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. If there's no response, the Board of Education looks forward to the continuation of cooperative good faith contract negotiations with the Torrance Teachers Association. The board's initial response is to refer the Torrance Unified School District initial proposal to Torrance Teachers Association for 2019-2020 to the board's representative for negotiations. Okay, and that was item, again, 9.2. And then we have one more public hearing, and that is for item 9.3, which is the board's initial response on the Torrance Teachers Association initial proposal for 2019-2020. The Torrance Teachers Association initial proposal for 2019-2020 was submitted at the regular meeting of the Board of Education held on March 16, 2020. Copies of the proposal have been available in the city libraries and the Human Resources Department for review by the public. A public hearing will be held at the Torrance Teachers Association on the Torrance Teachers Association initial proposal for 2019-2020 at this time. Is there any public comment related to the Torrance Teachers Association initial proposal for 2019?
We have not received any comment.
Okay, once more, we'll do a short pause in case. Okay, seeing no response, the Board of Education looks forward to the continuation of cooperative good faith contract negotiations with Torrance Teachers Association. The board's initial response is to refer the Torrance Teachers Association initial proposal for 2019-2020 to the board's representative for negotiations. And that was item number 9.3. Okay. So that gets us through to our next item, which is our, not our consent agenda. Uh-oh, I lost a page here. Where did my page go? Here it is. No. Open session. Part of the problem with Zooming is now I can't do my computer on the agenda. All right, guys, I have lost my next page. What's next in the agenda?
Your next item is oral communications,
Oh, okay.
and we have not received any comments under oral communications.
No, so do I need to still go ahead and read the instructions, Dr. Manning, or should we let it go?
No, I think you can let it go because there are no comments.
Okay. All right. Where did that page go?
Just for people who are watching to understand, I think that we have received comments that will be read later on in the meeting, and those comments apply to a specific agenda item, not this oral communication piece, right?
Yes.
You're correct.
Yes. We have received comments, but none of them relate to unagendized items. They're all related to a particular item that is on the agenda. All right, so now we have discussion action items, instructions to the public regarding those. And I do want to go ahead and read that because we do have some comments here. Speakers wishing to address the board on agenda topics are permitted 3 minutes per topic. That total time will be granted for public input shall be limited to 30 minutes for topic. The board policies require that public presentations to the board comply with certain procedures, including, and I'm going to go ahead and read the above since we didn't read them last time, including items 2 through 4, which is a speaker may not relinquish his or her time to another when addressing the board. Speakers are requested to state their name, address the president, and not from the podium since we're not there, and adhere to the applicable time limits. Complaints against employees or students will normally be heard in closed session, and the district's complaints procedure should be followed before discussion with the board. The board may remove disruptive individuals or order the room cleared, or do you have Zoom, I guess? Any person who willfully disturbs any public school meeting is guilty of a misdemeanor. Education Code 32210. I just want to comment that I do want to take a little pause here in case there's someone who wanted to make a comment on an agenda item and has not yet done so. But also, I mentioned a 3-minute limit on the length of the comment. We will hold the written comments to that too. Dr. Mannon will try to read them at a normal pace, but if it's longer than a 3-minute time that it takes to read the comment, it will end at 3 minutes, which means that, Mr. Hahn, we need you to keep track of our time, if you will, please. And watch, and especially that we don't run our 30-minute limit for the item unless we decide to make a vote to do that as a group.
Mrs. Reagans, I did have a request from Torrance Teachers Association that if we exceed the 30 minutes, which I don't know that we will, but if we do, that we allow all the comments to be read tonight.
Okay.
So you can make that decision if we hit 30 minutes.
Okay, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
Can
Yep.
we also, before we begin, I know Dr. Mannon mentioned it at the beginning, but our numbers have increased. As I'm watching the number of participants rise, can we repeat that if anyone wants to get a comment in, that it needs to be sent to superintendent@TUSD.org?
Correct.
Thank you.
And that is the only way to have a comment put in. Even if you join us on the Zoom, you cannot participate on Zoom. It must be a written comment in order to have your question or comment expressed. So, moving forward, our first item to discuss is the approval of the employment agreement for Dr. Timothy H. Stowe as the interim superintendent.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay.
Mrs. Reagans, I do have comments related to this item, so it will take a little bit of time.
Okay.
The first comment comes from Monica Sousa. I am writing today to express my extreme disappointment of the decision of the school board to hire an interim superintendent at this meeting. I have several concerns with this decision. Number one, Dr. Mannon is under contract until June. As such, there is no need to make this decision now. A decision of this magnitude should be made only after significant public discourse, even in the extraordinary circumstances we find ourselves. It is possible to communicate with stakeholders throughout the district for feedback. This is especially true given that this position is for a 2-year term. Number three, the absence of public discourse and communication points to a profound disrespect for stakeholders in the district, including teachers, students, parents, and the voters who look to you for leadership and guidance in uncertain times. The circumstances of this decision are a betrayal of leadership and guidance in these uncertain times. It says decisions are a betrayal of the trust stakeholders and voters put in you to change the culture of our district. With no respect to Dr. Stowe's credentials, he is a candidate for the permanent position. When the search for a permanent replacement for Dr. Manning is resumed, the school board will have provided a significant and unfair advantage to Dr. Stowe as a candidate. This seriously damages the credibility of the process to replace Dr. Manning that was already underway. It is also extraordinarily unfair to any other candidates that may be under consideration now or in the future. This could be alleviated if Dr. Stowe excused himself from applying for the permanent position, or if he was contractually barred from doing so. I see no such provisions in the contract as provided to the public. For these reasons, I humbly submit that the school board delay this vote until such time as it can undergo a proper, transparent, and public process that respects the voices and needs of all stakeholders. Now more than ever, that is what citizens, students, and educators in Torrance expect and demand from their leaders. Thank you for your time. I received also emails that were exactly the same as this one, and so since the emails were the same, I'll go ahead and read into the record the people that sent them. Carrie Narasaka, Julie Dominguez, Patricia Beepens, Rolanda Avrusmason, Carlos and Walter, Christina Takiata, and Pete McCallum. I also received one from the Reyes family. It is exactly as this letter, however, they left point 1 out. And Patricia Kennedy also submitted a letter which is less verbiage, but the same similar points that were made in this letter. I also have received other emails from individuals. And so starting with those other emails, Chris Phillips, as a TUSD teacher and parent of a TUSD student, I find the process of installing Dr. Stowe as interim superintendent disturbing. It would appear that the district is capitalizing on the current lack of community involvement due to COVID-19 crisis as a means to further their preconceived agenda. My question: why Dr. Stowe isn't in a conflict of interest to appoint someone from a pool of position applicants? Why can't we simply have assistant superintendents work on a group to cover the position duties for 1 year until a decision involving teachers, parents, and public be made? This rash decision will only serve to further erode trust of the district in the stewardship. I have an email from Sarah Duenas. Good evening, my name is Sarah Duenas, parent and a child in North Torrance resident. I am disturbed by the rush to hire a superintendent while we are in the midst of a pandemic. I understand the need to distance, but this matter could have been handled as we shelter in place. The selection should have been narrowed down and scheduled in your timeline, and the school board should have conducted business within the timeline. Schooling has continued as we have rolled into shelter in place with our students and teachers. Why should this selection be any different? While I appreciate Dr. Stowe's service to the school district and I appreciate his credentials, I do question if there is not someone better out there. And I really question why the timeline presented at the start of this search is suddenly off the table. We voted the board based on their leadership. We have all had to pivot and conduct our lives in different manner during the pandemic. Business was conducted as usual in unusual fashions, and the school board should rise above and conduct this decision with a timeline that was given them plenty of time to select a final candidate. If in fact Dr. Stowe is the candidate available, you have done him a severe disservice to not to have continued the process as scheduled. The decision will damage the credibility of the process to replace Dr. Manning and you will permanently damage the reputation of the school board by taking such an abrupt step. It is also extraordinarily unfair to any other candidates that may be under consideration now or in the future. For these reasons, I request that the school board should delay this vote until such time as it can undergo a proper, transparent, and public process that respects the voices and needs of all stakeholders. Now, more than ever, this is when citizens, students, and educators in Torrance expect and demand from their leaders. Excuse me a second, I have to have a drink of water.
All righty, Mr. Hahn, are we timing this?
Yes, we are.
All right.
Okay. My name is Charlotte Sorensen, parent and teacher. I have lived in the Lower Riviera since 1995, and both of my children are the product of the area TUSD education, beginning with Riviera, then Richardson, and now both currently attend South High School. And I am proud of the education they have received and their growth as individuals. During my 4 years spent at home with my children, I had the pleasure of acting as a very regular parent volunteer at Riviera and Richardson. I am currently invested in the school district. Excuse me. As someone who has been both a taxpayer of the area and then a taxpayer with children who attend school in the district and who has never missed a local election vote since moving in '95, I am flabbergasted by the prospect of Torrance Unified School District's board decision to quietly suspend the search for a new superintendent and ease Dr. Tim Stowe into the position for a 2-year interim position as acting school superintendent. This decision not only violates the stated claim of transparency within the school board's decision-making process, but is truly an underhanded attempt to bypass the system that has been placed in place to conduct an unbiased search for a school superintendent to replace the outgoing Dr. Mann. My suggestion is to ask Dr. Mann to continue in the position that it takes to complete the candidate search. As a taxpayer, I would like to know that the $26,000 that was spent on the candidate search will not be wasted or has been provided as a cover for the ability to sneak school board's preferred incumbent members. Considering the budgetary shortfall the district has anticipated for TUSD, it would be a poor form to use the people's funds with such disregard. My teacher friends within other school districts are equally stymied by the prospect of this happening. Thank you for continuing TUSD school board meetings, albeit virtually, to ensure continuity and forward process. I strongly feel that your decision to quietly appoint Dr. Tim Stowe as interim school supervisor is a deceitful and underhanded way to conduct business. I have an email from Renata Anwalder, and who's lived in Torrance for over 50 years. I have 4 grandchildren currently in the district. It has come to my attention that at the last board meeting, the board decided to elect Dr. Tim Stowe as interim superintendent. Dr. Mann is still in office until June, and there are other candidates who will have a difficult time competing with someone who is already established. Also, it seems the vote did not include any input from teachers, parents, children, and concerned citizens. There is no rush. It is important that all voices be heard. Respectfully, Renata Anwalder. Have an email from Mrs. Ramos. Dr. Mannon, please accept and read the following comment for tonight's board meeting regarding the possible naming of interim superintendent. My name is Christina Ramos. While I reside outside the district, I'm a veteran teacher at Magruder. I wish to speak about the agenda item below. Because of the COVID-19 closures and distance learning, I wonder if this is the reason that an apparent rush to judgment is being made without conversations with the stakeholders of this district or their approval. This all seems contrary to your previously stated intentions. Furthermore, offering a 2-year contract seems like you have made your choice already. Why did the district spend $26,000 of taxpayer money to do a nationwide search for someone new if you were going to appoint someone from within the district anyway? That money could have been spent to directly assist the staff and students and to choose from within. What happened to the transparency that was promised during the entire process including the timeline posted on TUSD website. Please reconsider the choice to approve a 2-year contract and do what you said you would do all along, which is to be transparent, seek advice and approval of the stakeholders of the district before choosing someone. I have an email from Mary Beth Borowski. My name is Mary Beth Borowski, and I'm a teacher and resident in Torrance. I had faith in the process. I kept telling people the school board authorized a huge chunk of money to find the best candidate for superintendent, and the process would be transparent. I had my opinion of who or should not be the next superintendent, and I let my opinion be known. But in the end, I trusted the process. I figured it would be transparent, and if the school board thought that someone was the best candidate, I would live with that. Now that I hear that the school board shut down the process and offered one of the potential candidates an interim position for 2 years with a contract. A lot can change in 2 years, but it won't matter because we will potentially be working with the appointed interim superintendent instead of moving forward with the process when we can start it back up. The teachers of Torrance were already ignored once when our contract was imposed. Please don't ignore us and other stakeholders in this process. Please suspend your vote until you open the discussion to include everyone who will be affected. There are lots of options. It is still early. We don't need a unilateral decision. Lauren Sidak. Relationship to the district, teacher, and parent. I am writing today about agenda item 11.2 regarding the appointment of an interim superintendent. My concern is that the process has not been transparent. 2 years is excessive for the position, and that decision does not validate input of all stakeholders. In fact, it came as a surprise to every TUSD staff member I spoke with that this happened so suddenly and in a short amount of time. In the meeting I attended with the consulting firm, the attendees universally agreed that they want a superintendent who is a team builder, and they favored candidates from outside the district who would bring in new blood with no biases, someone who will value needs of stakeholders. Tim Stowe does not fit this profile. In fact, there is a fair amount of resentment toward him in the district regarding the academic calendar and past attempts at salary negotiation. I have no personal issues with Mr. Stowe, but our district is facing some serious challenges in the near future, and it's important that parents, teachers, classified staff, site administrators, and district administration can all trust one another in being able to work together. Appointing an interim superintendent may be a reasonable decision during the current pandemic. However, appointing one of the candidates for 2 years is excessive. Excuse me. A number of stakeholders are curious as to what information the consulting firm provided. It should be made clear. I was under the impression that they would recommend a few candidates based on feedback from everyone. This does not seem to the case. As a result, many people are surprised and do not feel they can trust the school board or current district administration as a result. As a parent and teacher of TUSD, I ask you consider this situation further and delay your vote. Jennifer Gerhardt, TUSD teacher. I wanted to voice my concern about school board's decision to appoint an interim superintendent. In my experience, when attending school board meetings, Dr. Stowe presents his agenda, bides his time through the public comment portion, and then his original proposal gets approved unaltered. As the superintendent's position is not yet validated, these conditions or these actions are premature. It feels more like a passing of the torch to a pre-selected TUSD employee than a fair hiring process for best candidate. I ask that the school board delay this vote until a fair, transparent, public process search for superintendent can be conducted. Barring that, Dr. Stowe should recuse himself from this position. Teresa Brown, teacher. I'm writing today to express my disappointment in the school board and to encourage you to postpone the vote. Excuse me 1 second. I was shocked and dismayed to hear the school board was rushing decision which does not need to be made at the board meeting. Dr. Mann has until June 30th to complete his current contract. There's time to interview and scrutinize candidate for the position of superintendent. It is imperative the process is followed. The community, parents, and teachers need to be part of the discussion. Let this meeting be one in which you give stakeholders information so differing points of view can be shared. This decision needs to have a fair and public hearing. Thank you for your consideration. I now have a rather long email from Julie Schenkel, Torrance Teachers Association. Dear board members, I am Julie Schenkel from the TTA Board of Directors. I am writing to express my disappointment in the board's motion to name an interim superintendent at this time. When you embarked on the search for Dr. Mannon's successor, the board made clear its goals to engage in a transparent and fair process that included from stakeholders. Tonight's action erases your hard work to rebuild bridges, communication, and trust. Your action tonight invalidates a fair process in a future search for superintendents in the following way. By suspending the process and completing a search for an interim superintendent without transparency. By hiring an interim from within the pool of candidates, a decision made solely in closed session in late March with no public knowledge, they're stripping any future process of validity. By abrogating the work of the independent consultant hired to conduct the search, thereby making the expenditure of over $26,000 of taxpayer funds appear to be a waste. By feeding the distrust that has plagued this district in the past board because you are tossing aside public input gathered in good faith and stifling input by skipping any formal announcement suspending the process. You've opted for a unilateral process instead of an inclusive interest-based process. By throwing aside the candidate profile compiled from stakeholder input. By exploiting a crisis in the name of expediency to avert your established process. By locking TUSD into a 2-year contract that has no contingency language to change the terms to meet quickly changing needs. 2 years is a long interim with no built-in flexibility. While TTA leadership agrees the search should be suspended in the short term, we feel that naming an interim from within the pool of candidates negates any future attempt at a fair search process. We expect in a fair process that anyone who is interested and qualified for the position has a fair shot. While this action item on board's agenda may seem expedient, it is not your only choice. Tonight, I ask you to preserve the process by 1, postponing tonight's vote to seek stakeholder input. 2, adding contingency language providing timeline flexibility to start the hiring process at any time within the 2-year period if certain criteria for normalcy are met. 3, considering administrators past or present who have not submitted their names for candidacy. And 4, properly informing stakeholders what the new hiring process will be moving forward.
Time.
Thank you.
Should we make a motion? Should we make a motion to let it finish?
If you would like to,
You will need to do that.
Yeah, can I make a motion to finish then? Just
I will,
you can.
I will second that motion.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to continue and let the comments be finished. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Continue, Dr. Mannion.
Thank you. My next email is from Deborah Bush, president of the Torrance Teachers
Dr.
Association.
Mannion, did you finish the last email? It seemed like we interrupted you in that email.
No, that was the end.
Okay, that was it. Okay.
Yep, that was the end. I am submitting my message to you in the midst of a crisis that has taken over not only our district or state, but the nation. I cannot express how disappointed I am in the actions being considered here tonight at this virtual school board meeting. Over the last 3 years, I have continuously been speaking about the lack of transparency in the district, important decisions, programs, and spending being pushed through without stakeholder input, because the TUSD administration believes they know what is best. Here I am again with the same message. I have ensured the teachers within TTA that this time things would be different with regards to the school board and district being transparent through the search of finding TUSD's new superintendent. As of March 13, when the COVID-19 crisis hit Torrance and we were changing overnight the way we deliver instruction, the rules have changed. A process that once in the light for all to see is now being dealt with in closed sessions without any transparency or stakeholder input. It is egregious to think that the school board is making a decision tonight without even announcing that the process has changed. TTA did ask the school board president, Terry Reagans, to consider suspending the search at this time and see if Dr. Mannon could continue to see us through some difficult times. Little did I know that that decision and decisions were already made in closed session for everyone to find once the agenda was posted. Disappointing, disrespectful, and certainly not transparent. So many questions. How is trust supposed to be built with actions like this? How can stakeholders feel respected with their voices being silenced? How are all the stakeholders being informed that the process has changed? How do stakeholders continue in good faith with the process when they are left in the dark? Lastly, why is the school board pushing through a 2-year contract for an interim superintendent when other options should and could be explored? I ask that the school board stop, reflect, and right this wrong by not voting on the item tonight. This process must be transparent. If it is vital that you get input from all stakeholders, let them know the new process and then truly listen to their concerns before any interim superintendent is made final. That's the end of my written ones, but I think I have gotten more comments sent to my cell phone while I was going through these. May I continue?
Please.
Okay. Hello, I am a resident of Torrance and have children attending the school district. My questions are with regard to the hiring of an interim superintendent. Can you explain why it would consist of a 2-year interim position? This seems like a long time and not temporary. Also, were any other outside interim candidates considered since the district hired leadership associates to assist the board with this process? If not, will the search continue throughout the next 2 years? Thank you for your clarification, Rosie Padilla. This is from Sandra Hutchinson. My name is Sandra Hutchinson, a teacher at Seaside Elementary and TTA board member. After reading tonight's agenda, I felt I had to write with a heavy heart. Dr. Stowe has been placed as an interim superintendent, for 2 years. I was hopeful last year when 3 new school board members were voted into office. It is now evident more than ever that TUSD administration interactions with school board are not transparent and shared with all stakeholders. This decision made by the school board brings to mind more questions than answers. Why did TUSD hire a company to find a superintendent? An example of TUSD pouring money into the program and not getting anything for it. What stakeholders were allowed to give input and on this important decision? I would have thought teachers, staff, and parents would have been consulted. I'm sure the communications consulting firm that was recently hired would be very disappointed in the lack of communication and transparency. Yet another example of the district wasting money on programs that don't help students in the classroom. What did you tell all the other applicants, and shouldn't they all be treated the same? Choosing one applicant over all the others is showing favoritism. I hope this means he will be out of the running for the permanent superintendent's position. I feel sorry for the other applicants since their effort doesn't seem to mean anything in Torrance. Disdain for teachers by imposing this year's calendar and an inability to work with TTA negotiations team has been shown in the past. If they shouldn't work with teachers in good times, How can we trust them to work with teachers during lean times? The Torrance teachers are holding the district together by virtually connecting with the very students they oversee with little respect for teachers. This broken relationship will be very hard, if not impossible, to repair. Why 2 years with a contract? Why not just a permanent superintendent is found? I, for one, am very disappointed with TUSD School Board in the way they went about recommending Dr. Stowe as interim superintendent.
Make a comment, please, Terry, is that,
Yes.
when we have oral communications and they do speak, we have the opportunity to respond. And you're not giving us, are we going to have opportunity to respond right after the question? Because the previous email asked questions and we didn't have time to answer. And I think it's appropriate that some of us answer to those questions.
I'm making notes.
I'm just wondering, Terry, I don't know, because usually during public comment, we do make comments after they speak.
Usually during unscheduled hearings, we don't make comments because it's not permitted by the laws that govern us. But in fact, if we choose to respond, the questions are all the same in each of the letters. So I think if somebody chooses to respond in the end, they can answer essentially, as Jeremy said, I was writing down the questions too. And I have maybe 6 or 8 different questions that seem to be what everyone are asking. We could respond to those in the end. Is that okay, James?
That's fine. I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure what we're going to be doing. Okay.
Well, I figured because it's an agenda item, that it gives us the opportunity, any of us the opportunity to speak about the item itself.
To have discussion. We haven't had our discussion yet. And in fact, during our discussion, I believe that a lot of these questions will in fact be answered rather than responding to their specific questions. So we haven't even had our portion of that discussion yet.
May I continue?
Yes.
I am writing in response to agenda item 11.2, the hiring of a superintendent without the input of the community, a thorough search for candidates, and non-transparent way in which the process proceeded. Please consider this choice. I understand in these times we cannot move forward with the hiring process, but in a 2-year contract is not the way to proceed. The district has spent a vast amount of money on consultants and time on gathering input from stakeholders. Why not put the hiring process on hold? Why not consult all stakeholders? I feel the decision will divide the community because the way it was done without input, with wasting $26,000 and betraying the trust of all parents and teachers. This is from Teresa Lavelle, a TUSD teacher. My name is Jennifer Graham. I live at 181 Ladine Avenue. I have 3 children who are current TUSD students. First of all, I understand we are going through extraordinary times. However, this does not excuse the board from not making the information public. The school district has most parents' email addresses, and I know that. I personally open and read anything Tammy Khan sends us. I would think something like this would certainly be worth an email from the district. I consider myself pretty plugged in, and I normally know what is going on, and yesterday was the first I heard about the situation. Next, no offense to Dr. Stowe, but I do not believe that giving him the job for 2 years and then having interviews after he has already been serving in the position is in the best interest of the district. It would give him an unfair advantage over the other candidates and would impede our district from finding the best possible candidate. Finally, I love our district. My kids go to some of the best schools in Torrance, and I appreciate everything that the teachers and administrators have done to ensure continuity. However, I do believe that it is time for a change in district leadership. We need a superintendent who is willing to work with teachers and administrators and to take input from the public, not treat us like a burden. Okay, Teresa Lavelle, I have already read her item. Okay, I am now at Kristen Anwader. Dear board members, thank you for leading. While I understand and support the decision to suspend the search for a new superintendent. I am saddened and disappointed to learn that you have decided to appoint an interim superintendent for 2 years with no public input. This is particularly concerning since you originally took the time to gather community input, a public survey, and spent public money on a search firm. It certainly appears that you have already taken the opportunity presented by a global pandemic to subvert a transparent process in favor of pushing a secret agenda. It is my understanding that Dr. Mann is under contract through June. That leaves ample time for board to seek an input. Any interim that is hired should exclude from the pool of candidates that had experience for this. I work for a church that has an interim pastor 7 years ago. The first time we hired an assistant pastor from within to serve as an interim. This decision hindered the church from carrying out a transparent and diligent process to find a candidate of high caliber. As a result, the interim was hired and the decision proved to be a poor one as our church lost membership and growth. The second time, we hired an interim pastor with full input from the congregation. The person is not eligible to apply for the lead pastor position. The current crisis has stalled our search for a long-term candidate. I am confident the search team will carry out diligent and transparent processes without distraction from an interim vying for the full position. This is the same argument I make for the superintendent's position. In conclusion, I ask that you please delay a vote on the interim until you have had input from stakeholders and make interim candidates ineligible for the full position. Thank you. Okay, that concludes the public comments that have been sent to me.
Okay, that is the public comment. Now we can proceed to board discussion. And hopefully this, like I said, this discussion will answer some, probably many, maybe all of the questions that have been asked in the items. Who would like to begin?
James, do you want to start?
But Jeremy, you can go ahead.
No, I was going to let you.
No, I'm trying to formulate my thoughts right now.
Well, no, I can go.
Okay,
You guys
Don,
don't want to go.
in between. Don, go ahead.
Okay. You know, I keep hearing a couple of things, and after 12 years, I kind of maybe I'm going to push back a little bit. One is, which I find interesting, is Dr. Mannon, Dr. Stowe, Dr. Crumpy, every other doctor in this district does nothing independently of other than what the board tells them to do. There seems to be a misconception that the superintendent or the assistant superintendent or the CAO just willy-nilly goes out and does things and then never really talks to the board about it. You know, if it was the board's decision to change the calendar, the board is asked their opinion on raises and all the other things that go on. So if you want to hate somebody for all that stuff, then you better hate the school board, because whoever's giving you that message is merely the messenger. They're not making any independent decisions. By law, they can't even do that. So that's number one. Number two is, you know, I'm getting to the point now where transparency, when it's brought up, is only brought up when you disagree with my decision. You know, I find it interesting because we followed the entire process that we said we would talk about. We took all the community input. We saw it all. We had meetings and meetings and meetings and public meetings and online and every different way that we could think to do it. And the board saw those comments. Now, the world dramatically changed since the 1st of February, but we saw all that data. And there was nothing in this process that was done any differently than what we did in the process, other than we got it done a month early. Okay. You know, and then I got a couple of comments on top of that. You know, when we started this superintendent search, you know, back in January, personally, I was just going to sit back and see how everything kind of sorted out. And frankly, kind of take my cue from the newer guys and gals, because they were going to leave the district after December 2020. I'm not going to run for re-election. My concern was always the budget, because that's probably what worries me the most of this organization. And really, it probably comes from coming on the board in late 2007 and then into 2008. And all I did for the first 4 years I was on the board was lay people off. You know, we ended up laying off in excess of 450 people in 08 through, through that period. And that's what terrifies me. And that's probably what causes me to do most of the things I've done to this point, because of what pain the board had to go through to basically rip 25% of the budget off this organization. And I know the new people, the new board members, all wanted to hire a new superintendent that would do new things and be exciting, and they would go through the process and find out all these new educational programs and other things that would go on going forward. Unfortunately, that's probably not an option anymore. Not when we're going to cut budgets that I'm hearing from the governor that are cuts deeper than 2008. So, you know, if we're sitting in a situation where solvency is your number one concern as opposed to other things, you make different decisions. The world changed from the 1st of January until the 20th of April. Changed quicker than anything's ever changed in my entire life. You know, everything's gone out the window in the last 6 weeks. You know, and so we've got to rethink what we're doing. You know, it comes down to, if it's gonna, let me tell you a story about why I think experienced leadership works right now as opposed to somebody new off the street. When Dr. Mannon was hired in 2015, I saw him walk into a Chamber of Commerce board meeting because I was president of the chamber. He didn't know a soul in town, okay? But he was the new soup, so, you know, he's going around town and he's on the board of directors of the chamber because he's on the superintendent. Well, then all of a sudden I hear he's going to run a school bond campaign. And he's still flailing around a little bit as he goes through this process because he's brand new in the community. And what he didn't know at the time was in March or June of 2016, there was going to be a rather contentious mayor and council race that was going to suck up all the time or all the space that we had to talk about passing a bond. But he wanted to do it because the board had told him to do it, and I volunteered to help him in that endeavor, and basically we got our butts kicked because you didn't know the way things work locally. And so 2 years later, in 2018, or 2008, school bonds were passed, and Dr. Mannon has passed $500 million in school bonds and been rather successful at it. But what the moral of the story is, it took him a couple of years to figure out how this community worked. It took him a couple of years to figure out how all the different intricacies of a relatively big town works. We don't have that kind of time right now. The governor's going to tell us in a week or two that we're going to have to hack X number of dollars out of a budget, when 2 months ago we were looking at a COLA increase. We were complaining that it went down 0.5%. Well, now we're just hoping that whatever the cuts come, that they're doable. So when we made this decision, at least for me, it was made that we have a team of people here that for the most part went through this in 2008 to 2011. They know the landscape. They know what's going on. You put new leadership in any organization when they're facing an I can't say it, a financial crisis, and expect new leadership in a new place to deal with it quickly, when quite honestly, what we have to do is move quickly, is asking a lot. It's asking probably too much. I don't think we have time for somebody to learn this on the job. Now, does the community deserve does the new board deserve to maybe pick their own superintendent? Yeah. That's why this is the 2-year temporary position. This isn't forever. This is for 2 years. And oh, by the way, and I'll speak maybe for Mrs. Reagan's, but I know I'm not running for reelection. So there's going to be 2 new board people on the board in December. So that will give you a board with a total combined year of 6 years on the 15th of December. And then if you drop in a new superintendent with 5 months of experience and expect for them to perform at a level that has been expected of this board and TUSD for the last 12 years, I think it's asking for too much. I don't think anybody can do that. So for the next 2 years, we're going to be 5 minutes away from bankruptcy for the entire process. And the ability to move quickly, to be able to move swiftly, be able to know what's going on in the community, be able to do that is the definition of success. It's not a new educational program for the next 2 years, unfortunately. It's not new shiny things. It's the preservation of the organization, because that's what we dealt with in 2008, 2009, 2010. We were doing mid-year cuts, not annual cuts. We were literally making cuts, around the first of the year to anticipate further cuts later in the year. And it was carnage. I mean, there's nothing I've ever done in my life, and I've been self-employed for 40 years, and I've laid off people, and I've fired people. There is nothing in my life that was more it was just hard. It was just, it hurt your heart to do this. And so if we're going to just dump a bunch of new people to solve this problem, the community is not going to be happy with what goes on, because it will take so long to catch it up, to get where you want to go, that you'll end up with an economic disaster. And that's really why, personally, I thought Dr. Stowe offered the best of alternatives, because of where we're at right now. I think Dr. Stowe is the right person. He's been the CAO, he's been the CBO, he's been a principal, he's been all those things in our district, and we don't have to teach him where Magruder School is. We don't have to teach him where all these things are, because he's done it. And oh, by the way, the other person whose name will come up, and I don't think she's on here, the key person in all this is Judy Chow, who's our chief financial officer. She makes this budget work. She can spin that budget around and get you data in minutes and seconds. And her and Dr. Stowe have an incredibly good working relationship. And that was another reason for looking at this, because, when you're running this organization, when you're searching for your next buck, you better have somebody that's good on the CFO side that can come up with the numbers and give you all the scenarios that you need to be able to make good decisions. And that's extremely important to the board as well, because we'll ultimately make those decisions. So that's my little bit of a rant, but thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lee. Now, Mr. Gerson, Mr. Han, who would like to go next?
Well, don't leave Betty out, unless Betty wants to
Oh, I
jump
know,
in.
but you guys were jockeying before.
You want to jump in front of us, Betty?
Mine's going to be really short, Jim. Why don't you go ahead?
Well, first of all, the first thing I want to say is I want to thank all the people who had the courage to speak up. In this age of social media, it's so easy to drop a bomb and leave, and not actually express that where your concerns are, who you are, and where you're coming from. And because each of us does have an agenda, and so it's nice when everyone's up front and lets you know. And this is a very challenging process. It's not how any of us dreamed that we would be here where we are right now. As Don said, on the public input piece, it is our job to take in public input, and we did ask the consultant to collect that data in every which way we knew how. Don also covered the fact that that we were supposed to be hitting final interviews right now. Like this is supposed to be, we're supposed to be able to go and meet with the consultant physically to review packets. We were supposed to be able to conduct face-to-face first round and be able to do second round. And so at this point, we would be discussing who that next person would be. COVID-19 took that away from us. Someone brought up that this is a biased search. No, the search, as TTA has said, they wish we had suspended it. Well, we did. We suspended it because we saw the inability to conduct this in the way that all of us would have wanted. It's been raised with me personally, and I heard it again tonight, that this hurts future candidate recruitment. Now, I actually left. I didn't just take consultant input, as we all did, but I went outside and I asked people who are in recruitment and human resources, and I said, is this a legitimate concern? And the people that I spoke to advised me that no, that is that's not actually a legitimate concern. That in this environment, what we're doing would not be a surprise, especially in light of other superintendents and the like who would apply in the competitive process. That they understand they're dealing with this in their communities and have built a rapport with their communities and care, and that they're taking care of their communities. So nobody of quality would be surprised by this decision. It was brought up about an exterior interim. That was brought up with the consultant. And there's two important pieces on that and the danger of an exterior consultant. First of all, it is the cost of this person who would be taking in an additional superintendent's salary. But that person, as for all the reasons that Don explained, would still not be running the organization. It would be Dr. Stowe and Dr. Crumpy, who would still be the workhorses that they have been. And at this point, I have to commend them, because the weekdays and weekends of which they were here, and Dr. Stowe texting updates at 11:35, 11:45 p.m. at night, and then by 6:45, 7 a.m., ready to give more updates the next day. I don't know. I know they didn't eat lunch. I don't know if they ate dinner many nights, and have worked so incredibly hard. I haven't asked them. I don't know if they've ever worked this hard. But, and it's so appreciative of how much they have done. The other issue with a temporary interim from outside is these people are retired superintendents, and their retirement forbids them from making too much money. So we would be rotating external, possibly every 3 to 6 months until such time as we could continue the process. The number of pitfalls along the way in this conversation are numerous. This position has been extremely interesting in just when you're in crisis, how you're constantly, being second guessed at every decision that you make. It was amazing when this worldwide pandemic started, that everyone and everywhere was saying, in an overabundance of caution, we're going to do this. But it, became very quick that it was out of fear that people were making policy decisions. And I'm really proud that my fellow board members and the cabinet were not making decisions out of fear. They've been very paused, very conscientious in every decision, and I've been, felt good about that. When I think about, as we had to close schools, and we had the benefit of our cabinet, that had constant video and telecommuting conference calls. They were constantly on with the California Department of Education, constantly on with the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health, LACO. They have their own networks. Dr. Mannon was constantly communicating with superintendents around the county. You had Dr. Stowe with his Chief Business Officer Network. We have Dr. Crumpy with her Chief Academic Officer Network, who were all giving us information. At least I know I was receiving information. Thanks to my wife, I got to watch in real time the decision-making process of the University of California and the University of Southern California. I want to thank some friends that I had whose children work at our two major hospitals, Torrance Memorial Medical Center and Providence Little Company of Mary. Thanks to them, I was able to get real-time information, because I have to tell you, I wasn't sure if the county Department of Public Health was receiving and reporting accurate information, but it was in fact really good information and accurate. Because of a communication that I got, I was able to give Dr. Stowe kind of a 48-hour heads up that it looked like there might be a statewide shutdown. And 2 days later, we had the safe at home order. My one frustration in all of this was on Friday when our governor came out and acted surprised by the March numbers and said what he said, pandemic-induced recession. I know from my conversations with Dr. Mannin that the day they announced that order, it was obvious that a recession would ensue. What else do you expect when you close all of your businesses and put people, at home? So, when the mayor just announced that city workers are going to be taking 26 days of furlough, but acting surprised, I don't think most of us were surprised. James seems to be very logically minded and could see it coming. Betty has amazing connections and has supplied information coming out of Washington. I honestly don't think that anyone on the school board was surprised when all of a sudden they're like, we're about to, we've hit a recession. And so when we're trying to make a decision, and I thank Don for saying it, I had a whole bunch of ideas on how to make the classroom more interesting, to make TUSD more interesting, programs, academic programs, where and what types. I love when Dr. Stowe, as I was talking about this, and he was talking about the expansion of our foreign exchange student program, which is very profitable. There's so many things that I wanted to do, and COVID-19 took that away from us. So the experts have said that it's going to be a year to a year and a half before we have a vaccine, before we might see normalcy. We have Dr. Fauci coming on TV and saying that life and school over the next year may be on and off again like a light switch. We may be in the classroom this month, and 2 months later, we may be completely virtually, have our virtual learning going on again. There is so much uncertainty right now in how COVID-19 is going to be. And if we do get a vaccine by next summer, will we have access to it? We're seeing how long it takes to create the tests for COVID-19. Well, how long is it going to take to produce the vaccine once it comes out here? I mean, is it going to be like toilet paper? Are we going to be able to access the vaccine or not? So again, superintendent searches normally start in March and end in time to install the person before July 1st. So with all this uncertainty, is it reasonable to expect that this coming March, a superintendent search would start? I don't know if that's a reasonable expectation because of all of the unknown and what the experts are telling us. So that would mean that it would start the following March. Well, now we're into that second year. So while that may not have been my first choice, those people who put up that argument, I can't disagree with them that they're not being logical and being and having good foresight into how do we protect this district, as Don put it, so that in 2 years, and I have to tell you, thank you to all of you and the other districts who put me on the California School Board Association Delegate Assembly, that now I got to start with those questions to Tony Thurman, the State Superintendent of Public Instruction's Senior Policy Advisor, going and start the conversation of what freedoms are you going to give us? What flexibility in budget are you going to give us? What laws are you going to let us change? I don't want to live through 2008 through 2011 again. I was fortunate. I had a math credential. my temporary contract turned into a permanent contract. But my friend who was a social studies teacher, it was like 5 years in a row where he was getting his RIF notice, his pink slip, and had uncertainty and instability and didn't know if he and his wife could buy a house. I dread those times. So when all of these things are coming at me and I'm being forced to go and have to make the best decision for this district in trusting, what I have seen of the people who've been working so hard for the district, I don't know if I hear the concerns, but I think that we've run through them all. At least I've run through all of them in my head numerous times. And I don't want to go on a rant longer than Don, but this is not an easy decision, but I think it is a right decision. And to Dr. Stowe, who has sat here through all of this, I do have confidence in you, and I will do everything I can to support you and to make sure that you are successful, and that anything I can do to help this district survive both the unknown COVID crisis and the known budgetary crisis that is looming over us with us having our budget adjusted this summer. We already know that's coming. So, I wanted to have a good process where we got to, whether it was Dr. Stowe or someone else, whoever he or she was, and all these programs. But like Don said, I want our district to survive, to thrive, and to be here. And I do have confidence that Dr. Stowe can get us to that point, and that we will again pick up the process, as Don said, with the 2 new board members when they do come on. So that's kind of my position. Thank you for the time.
I guess for me, just to add to what Don and Jeremy said, there's a phrase that comes to mind that says, from the Bible, obviously I have to use, but for such a time as this. When I ran to be on the school board, one of my biggest premise was that the reason why I wanted to run was I would have the opportunity to pick the new superintendent. That was kind of like my biggest job, my biggest thing, that I will be able to pick the new superintendent. But it's clear to me now that, well, God had different plans, that more than that, it was going to be a time where God was going to place me in leadership to guide our district through a turbulent time, something that I cannot even begin to imagine. And realizing that, I see the reality, and I want everyone to understand we appreciate everyone in our district right now, from all administrators and all our teachers to see what they are doing, even to the point of our nutritional staff. So I've been feeding the kids at Hull every day since this crisis started. So for the past month, every day, except for Easter week, because I was busy with church, I've been handing out meals, 12 portender meals a day at Hull Middle School. And you see the crisis, and you feel the crisis, and you see the pain. You see kids coming up with Chromebooks. You see how this is affecting families. We are feeding the kids. These people come every day for the exact same meals every day. You can only do so much with peanut butter jelly and grilled cheese every day for a month. And you see the frustration, you see the angst that they're all going through. But you see our nutritional staff, you see our administrators, you see our teachers working so hard. And I realized that as a board, it's for such a time as this that we got elected. We were thrown into this crisis, and I think that I was so proud the way that we able to make this decision. It was not an easy decision. Understand that this is a lack of transparency. I really disagree with that phrase, because of the fact that we did not ignore the consulting firm. The consulting firm, when we made this decision of going with the interim, it was with their guidance, with their wisdom, with our consultation with them. It's not like as if we made this decision apart from them. We were thinking about all the options that were laid before us, and we felt like at the end of the day that this was the best decision. I think TT agrees with that. We felt like, how can we hire someone to lead our district when we never met them? The only way we met them is through Zoom. It just didn't seem right. And not only that, but like Don has clearly stated, that at a time like this, we need a team that knows each other, that respects each other, that have gone through the trenches together at a time like this. We don't need diversity. We don't need division and strife in our leadership when we're facing a crisis. We need a team that knows and trusts each other as we're facing this crisis. And so I think we all agree that the suspension of the superintendent search was the wisest decision. So the question that becomes is the 2-year term. The 2-year term was necessary because of the fact that it would be weird if we had only Tim to do 1 year and to implement the plan. But then let's say that we don't hire him and then we bring someone else on. So we expect the new guy to implement Tim's plan while he's coming along. And if I were that person, I would feel like I'm being set up for failure, right, at that point. Because everything plan is in place, and you have to see that plan through. And that's why we felt like a 2-year term was necessary in order for the plan to be accomplished, right, at that point. But we felt like we needed someone someone that we knew for the sake of continuity. Because here's the thing, we know that what's facing us is going to be very difficult. And therefore, we also know that we're going to have to make some tough decisions. But it's so much easier for someone on the outside, they come in, for them to make cuts, it's like, whatever, I don't know these people. It's like, whatever, number is a number. But when you have someone that knows the people, that have worked together with these people, who they've seen in the Little League and baseball and AYSO and have lived in the community together. And when they're gonna have to make those cuts, trust me, those cuts are gonna be made with very wise and painful decisions to the point where it will hurt like no other. And I think that someone that's outside will have no problem with it, but it's when you know someone, when you experience life with them, I think that they would have a radically different, they will do whatever it takes to avoid whatever catastrophic result we have to do, because of the fact that they are personally dead. And I felt like, you know what, Tim is the right person for now. I think that Tim is someone that has loved the community, served the community, been a part of the community. And I think that when those type of decisions will come to come, I think Tim is someone that will take it very personally, and he'll be very thoughtful when those decisions come. And we felt like that's what we needed for such a time as this. Someone that would be compassionate, but someone that also understands what our end goal is, to make sure that our district is solvent. Someone who has already made tough decisions, and I think one of the challenges is that somehow that seemed like some of the comments was this subversive pre-planned decision to have someone already in mind to become superintendent. This is all part of our plan. That was not a part of our plan. If you understood the decisions and the things that we had to think about in our discussions, you would be very proud. And I think that you would agree with what the decision the board has made at a time such as this. And that's why I'm proud of our board members that we collectively thought this thing through, and we felt like we made the best decision. At the same time, you're saying that, you're making this unfair for all the other candidates that are out there. But the thing is, so often, no one has also mentioned how unfair this is to Tim. We're throwing Tim into the fire, right? You are asking this guy to make sure that we are be okay in 2 years when we know basically hell is coming. And so we're bringing this impossible task on this guy. And you're saying that this is not fair to him? I think, if anything, this is unfair to him. If anything, I'm grateful that Tim is willing to take on this role. Because at the end of the day, you could say that we are setting him up for failure because we are throwing him in the midst of this crisis. So my thing is, no. If anything, rather than looking how we're being unfair to everyone else, imagine if you were Tim Stowe and that you were in the superintendent, and then you're about to face this crisis and you're going to take on this role as an interim, that you're not even given the title, but you're going to take on this role. My thing is, I give my hats off that Tim is willing to take on this role, and I'm thankful for that. And I think that, at a time such as this is where I think that rather than finding division and finding, disagreement, this is when we really need to come together. We will get through this together. This new normal that we are facing is unknown. But I think that there has to be that rebuild of trust, and I guess, I don't know how else that we can show that trust. But I think that our leadership have demonstrated an ability to lead at a time like this. And so to me, I'm grateful that Tim is taking on this role. I think it'll be a challenging role. At the same time, I hope that the teachers and our administration and everyone in the district will understand that this was not an easy decision. This is a decision that we wrestled with, a decision that we knew that we would face a lot of criticism by. But at the same time, we felt like we need to make a decision, and I believe that we made the right one. And I hope that all of us would see that. And I'm looking forward to seeing where we'll be in 2 years, and how this will all turn out. And I sincerely believe if we all work together, this will turn out to be okay. And so that's all I have to say.
Is Terry missing? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we hear you.
Terry's missing. But for those of you who know me or have been watching the school board meetings, you know that I don't speak up unless I have something new to add or if it's necessary. And in this case, I feel like I just have a few words to say to summarize how I feel about hiring Dr. Tim Stowe as our interim superintendent. The basic line is, I do concur with my colleagues. And that's because these are very challenging times. As you all know, COVID-19 is an unprecedented event that affects the whole world, really. And so I feel that the most important thing that we need to do is to have a successful transition to distance learning. And who knows, we might still have to do it the following school year. None of us know what's going to happen yet in the future, and not just these few months. I think that number one, that the issue we have to face is making distance learning as stable, as smooth, and as stable as possible for our students. And then a second problem that we knew we're going to have is the budget. We are not going to have enough money, as some of you know already. And Sacramento is not giving us enough money that we're supposed to have. And who knows what COVID-19 did to the governor and the legislature, how they're going to allocate the money to districts like ours. So having someone who is familiar with our budget for many years, and especially during a crisis like this, and someone who's flexible enough to know what to do, and someone who is familiar with many aspects of our district, someone who actually has worked in many different roles, from teachers, from being a teacher to principal to academic director to many other positions. I think it's very important that we have this continuity, be able to do the right thing in terms of the budget, and make it hurt the least as possible. But that's another issue. So all in all, I think that hiring Dr. Tim Stowe is a very good idea on our part. I'm happy that he wants to stay on, and I look forward to working with him for the next 2 years as our interim superintendent. I think we lost our president, Terry.
I do not see her.
I don't see her either.
Well, Betty, as vice president, it's your duty to take over.
Great. Awesome.
Yeah,
All right.
You might give a couple of moments for Mrs. Reagans to try to get back on.
I've got her on my
If that's
phone.
possible.
Oh, thank you,
What
Gil.
was that, Gil?
I've got her on my phone, Dr. Mann. The room is so full, she can't get back on. So
Yeah, I can't get back in.
but I'm kicking people out that I know. So I apologize. So Justine, sorry, I owe you a drink or something. So I can let Terry back in. Otherwise, if you can hear her through my phone, I'll let her speak.
I can speak through the phone. Can they hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can.
Anybody home?
Yeah, they can hear you, Terry.
Okay. So Betty, you were just speaking, right?
Yes, I was.
Okay, sorry, I actually missed your portion because I got kicked off. And I heard most of what both Jeremy and James had to say. I'll have to watch the tape for yours, Betty.
Okay.
But I just wanted to add, and this may be a repeat, and I apologize if it is. Like I said, I didn't hear all of the entirety of the previous comments. Is just that first and foremost, hiring the interim is not a finalization of the superintendent search project process. The official process is being put on pause, and the board in 2 years will decide if and when and how and what to resume or restart the process after these critical 2 years of survival. The bottom line is, for me, is I want to translate to all of you my sense of extreme urgency and responsibility in this situation, in this time. And that is what has changed in the last month. As I believe we all know, even though we kind of, in some of the messages, it was like it was status quo, and no, nothing is status quo. From my perspective, this is an interim appointment during a world catastrophic pandemic. The coronavirus is creating a crisis situation, really it is, for every aspect of our society, up to and including and even mostly our schools. There's unprecedented upheaval and disruption in our schools that I'm not sure we will ever be back to any sense of normalcy again. It's that drastic, and there's an even worse outlook in the near future and the distant future. So I truly believe that choosing to hire a familiar, committed, experienced team member to ferry the district through the morass ahead is the best decision right now. I agree with TTA that we had to suspend the process because it wasn't going to be able to be completed at this point in time. But we did need to solidify leadership, and I believe we need to do it quickly so that people don't believe that they're in limbo, so that we have some stability and consistency and continuity. And there is some decision-making ability here to be able to move forward. I hope that everyone can feel confident, as we do, that this particular action is the best choice for right now, for the most successful survival for our school district. And I truly believe it is down to that important aspect. All the while preserving the best education we can for our students, since that is obviously our goal. So I hope everyone can join us in an effort to be collaborative and get through this thing and keep the district whole, as well as solvent and capable. So that was all I needed and wanted to say. And as I said, if any of us repeat, sorry about that. Were there any other comments from any other board members at this point? Anybody?
No, Terry.
Okay, then are we ready to move forward with the vote?
I believe so.
No other comments from the community either, Dr. Mannon?
No, because comments cut off once it went back to the board.
Oh, okay, thank you. So we have a motion and a second to approve the employment agreement for Dr. Stowe as the interim superintendent. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And all those opposed? Okay, thank you. It was a unanimous decision. So we will move on to the second discussion action item, which is adopting the resolution number AS 08-19/20 of the Board of Education of the Torrance Unified School District to increase statutory school fees imposed on new residential and commercial/industrial development projects pursuant to Ed Code number 17620, which is developer fees. Dr. Stowe, you want to take that for a minute while I try to sign on here?
Ms. Reagan's we need a motion and a second.
Okay, motion and second.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Now, Dr. Stowe.
Thank you, Mrs. Reagan's, members of the board. First of all, on that previous item, I want to thank you for your support and for that of the community. We have certainly challenges ahead of us, and we will face those together and we will come out stronger on the other side. I truly believe that, having worked and lived in this community my entire life, having children in the community, I know firsthand the impact that that parents are going through. And I want to express to you how humbled and honored I am for this opportunity. I know it is on this other item, but I do also want to express the resilience and incredible stories that we've seen throughout this. We have teachers that have found ways to keep student learning at the forefront while they're in a new environment. Our classified staff, as was mentioned, stepping up and really on the front lines, feeding children, keeping our buildings safe, and making sure that the families and students still feel engaged while our physical buildings are closed. We have administrators leading the learning. They're finding new ways to support staff and students. Everybody's coming together, and it's a tremendous time for this district, and one that will provide strength for all of us as we come out. There's a lot of people that are working very hard, and for that I want to thank them. So on this item in particular, this is a standard statutory school fee item that we bring to the board every year about this time. We go through a biannual study, and the results of that study take into account all of the different construction that's going on. They look at our school sites and the capacity and make recommendations, and this is what the recommendation is.
Carrie we had dropped her signal. She's back on.
It's not my fault, really, it's not. Were there any questions from any of the board members?
No, but due to the significant number of drop-offs after our last vote, you might be able to log back in, Terry.
Yeah, I'm trying. Trying to get back. That's why I was hoping I could get back in. It looks like it's working now. Okay, so if there's nothing to add, I think I just need to be admitted, and I'm probably okay here. Oh,
There you are.
We see you.
We see you now.
I'm hanging up on you now.
You know, everybody except for James is wearing pants. That's a good sign, I guess. You know, I intentionally put on long pants today, but clearly I don't have legs that look like that, so I guess I'm okay.
I still put on a collar for you.
I put on a collar. This is the first shirt with collar I've had on in a month.
Had another meeting earlier. I have collars too, but oh well. Oh, no, James got a tie on, so none of you do.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, you look rather look like you're from the Bahamas with the shorts and the tie.
Okay, back to the meeting, guys.
Okay, yeah, our ADD is kicking in.
Thank you for waiting for me. Sorry about that. So we have a motion and a second to adopt resolution AS-0819/20, which is about the new residential and commercial industrial projects pursuant to fees of statutory school fees. I guess there's no questions, comments. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, thank you. Motion carries. And third, we have 11.4, which is to adopt the resolution number AS-10-19/20, resolution of the board authorizing the borrowing of funds for fiscal year 2021 and the issue and sale of one or more series of 2021 tax and revenue anticipation notes or trans, therefore, and participation in the California School Cash Reserve Program, and requesting the Board of Supervisors of the county to issue and sell said series of notes. Can I get a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. This is Dr. Stowe also.
Thank you, Mr. Reagans, members of the board. This is also a standard item that we have brought forward every year. This is in case the district needs to borrow from the county treasurer. We have never used this in the years that I've worked in this district. However, we put it on just in case, and this may be one of those just in case
This may be.
situations. We are doing everything we can to preserve and keep cash, but in the event that there are deferrals at the state level following the tax date of July 15th, then we may need to tap into this for the very first time. But we do not anticipate it, but we just do it at this time of year, just in case.
Hey, does anybody have any questions about the trans? Above and beyond? Nope. Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt resolution number AS-10-19/20 in favor of authorizing the borrowing of funds of the fiscal year of 2021. That doesn't mean we will, but we could if we needed to. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, they're all falling asleep now. All right, so that takes us finally to the consent agenda here, folks.
I'll make a motion to approve all the consent items, items 13 through 19 inclusive.
Did anyone want to consider anything individually? That was a no. Okay,
No.
then, and there was did someone second?
I will
Sorry to hear.
second.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second to pass all of the consent items as listed. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? No. Okay, motion carries. Moving on to, James, do you have a report tonight? I don't even know. Through general consent.
Here
Can't
are
believe
comments
I
from
was-
members of the board.
Okay, yeah, that's, James, do you have a report tonight from SoCal Rock?
He's gonna have to unmute his phone or his
Oh.
computer.
I don't think that SoCal Rock has had a meeting.
No, we have not had a
James,
meeting. We have not had a meeting.
You did not have a meeting? Okay.
No.
All right, I wasn't sure if you had or not. Does anyone have any comments from the board? There've been lots of opportunities for that tonight, but anything else that you wanted to say before we move on this evening?
Mr. Gerson might have a report.
So,
Mr. Gerson.
thank you. So, with the California School Boards Association Delegate
Oh,
Assembly,
yes.
the April assembly had to be canceled for COVID-19 safety reasons, and they have rescheduled it to a Zoom web conference on May 16th, so I'll be able to report after that. I was able to ask for a meeting of local delegates from our local CSBA person, and she went over the top and brought in a couple of speakers. It was nice that Terry and Betty were also both able to conference in.
It was
And the most interesting part of the conversation was Mary Nicely, State Superintendent Tony Thurman, Senior Policy Advisor. It was interesting. It was nice for the willingness of the CDE to begin having a conversation and take input on budget flexibility and what legislation needs to be changed to help us survive in the coming years. And also, it was nice where she kind of candidly told us that after the governor went off script with step 5 of the plan with schools and social distancing, and that he's backed off a little bit on that because very interesting conversation I had with Dr. Mannon that I never really considered as a teacher, but classrooms are developed that each student numbers are based, 3 square foot area per student. And so if you think about social distancing in a classroom, if you're going to expand 3 feet to 6 feet, and this being the math teacher in me, you can't just think width, you have to think length as well. How do you would have to cut students by 75% and only have 1/4 of your class at a time. So it'll be interesting to see as Dr. Mannon and Dr. Stowe continue to work with their contacts, and as we continue to work with CSBA, to see what the future of education looks like. I've been getting a lot of questions like, what's the fall going to look like? And of course, nobody can answer those questions yet. There's too many unknowns, but all of those things are being worked on. Sorry that nobody can report what it's going to look like, because absolutely nobody knows, because those arguments are being had at the state level, the county level, and we're doing what we can to make sure that the input of our team is also brought up to each of I know Dr. Maninardi has the county covered, but my goal is through CSBA to have the Torrance Unified input continue on up to the state level. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, now I've got my pages back, and I realized I did skip over board calendar. Do check that out, because there will be some changes. Is everybody still with me? You guys all froze. Okay. The annual report from Bond Citizens Oversight Committees are on the agenda. So check those out too, please. And anything else from anybody?
No, just congratulations to Dr. Stowe.
Anybody?
Congrats, man.
Congratulations. All of us look forward to working with you. Right, starting now, as you know. I just want to quickly add a sincere thank you to all our teachers, administrators, support staff, nutrition meal providers out there who's working every day along with James in passing out the breakfast and luncheon, and for being flexible and adjusting to this pandemic, of COVID-19 and doing what's necessary. I know that, all those people, teachers and administrators, including our superintendent and his cabinet members, have all worked extra hard, and also through spring break to be able to give us a smoother transition to learning online. So just want to quick thank you for that. And also to the parents and students out there. Thank you also for being flexible and in dealing with this pandemic altogether. It is very important. It is our priority also to continue to have all students learn all the important material that they need to learn. And so just a sincere thank you. That's it.
Okay. I'm glad you said that, Betty, because I actually did have two other things. There are some classified employee service anniversaries. For 10 years, there's Laura Fisher and Sabiha Khan. For 15 years of service, we have Rebecca Garcia, Azam Jordan, and Kathy Kasai. And then for 20 years, we have Kathleen McCarthy and Jeannie Stone. And then there are several resolutions on this agenda, and you'll see what reminded me when Betty said that. First is Bus Drivers Day is April 28th. So if you have any bus drivers that you see, thank them for what they do. May 13th is kind of ironically School Nurses Day. Thank you, school nurses, for doing what you're doing, and could not be more appropriate in this day and time. May 2020 is Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. May 2020 is TUSD Mental Health Awareness Month. May 13th, 2020 is the California Day of the Teacher, which is what it made me think of when Betty was talking about the teachers. So I do truly appreciate what our teachers do for, except the parents, they don't like being the teachers, but that's okay. So that was all I had. How about a motion to adjourn? I'm not hearing anybody. Oh, shoot.
So moved.
Okay, I will assume there's a motion and a second to
Second.
adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye, everyone. Maybe we should get Terry new Wi-Fi in her house. Bye, guys.
I'll be ending the meeting. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you, Gil.
I don't know how to get rid of all this.
Leave meeting at the bottom. There should be.